On this week's episode of Hockey Inside Out, we'll find out from the panel their thoughts on Carey Price's press conference on Monday and what the future holds for him. And also Arber Xhekaj, knockout punch Zach Kassian. What does that mean for his future with the Montreal Canadiens? And finally, Juraj Slafkovsky, his strengths and weaknesses. What does he have to do to maintain his stats on the Montreal Canadiens moving forward? And also 3 hard-hitting bonus questions. All this and more on Hockey Inside Out next. Now, welcome here to another edition of Hockey Inside Out, our hard-hitting episode that we have lined up. And also the panel here, Stu Cowan, Rick Green, and Andrew Berkshire, 3 of the top-end players for the number 1 line that we have on this week's episode. Gentlemen, let's dive into it. Carey Price had his press conference on Monday to talk about his future with the organization, hopefully for his sake, to kind of keep moving forward here. Andrew, your thoughts from your takeaways from his presser on Monday?
My number 1 takeaway was that he's not ready to step away, right? He did not want to close the door on a comeback, even though it looks increasingly unlikely as this knee injury continues to heal, or not heal, sorry. Also, it was a little bit cheeky, I think, that he threw back to like being 8 years old with knee injuries, and obviously, you know, goaltending is a position that knees and hips start to wear down relatively quickly, but he didn't want to throw Chris Kreider under the bus. But I think we all know that injury with Chris Kreider is the start of these issues, right? I know he won the Hart right after that, but he was never quite fully healthy after that moment. And it's tough to watch a player who was so dominant have their career ended in a way that isn't their choice. But at the same time, he seems to be in a good place. He's, battled his issues off the ice and is now fully entrenched with being a family man at home. Seems to be enjoying that greatly. So as much as I think everyone would like to see Carey Price make this miraculous comeback and somehow become an amazing goaltender again and come back, right as the Canadiens rebuild ends and he's 38 years old and wins his first Stanley Cup, it'd be a great story, right? But at the same time, if this is truly the end, I think it's also a cathartic end for Carey Price and his family.
I was impressed how he really spoke from the heart. And he said that, the priority right now is living pain-free and spending time with his family. And it's amazing as you get older how priorities change. And, if he's been dealing with a lot of things, which he has been, it's been really difficult on him. And, for him to step forward and publicly, make that announcement that, I have a problem. I have issues that I need to seek help for. He moved forward and did it. And hopefully that's going to help other people realize that, there's help to be, to happen out there when you need it. So, very courageous guy. As far as his injury goes, obviously it's a real long shot as he says. But the bottom line out of all of this, I'm just really hopeful that he enjoys, all his years of hard work and can find a way to live pain-free as he gets older. And he's a great young man and very much appreciated, all over the world for that matter. And I'm happy to see that he has gotten help, and he's got a battle on his hands. He's going to continue to battle it each and every day, but confident that he's in a good place mentally right now, and he's going to battle like all people do to find a way to resolve his issues.
Yeah, that's the most calm and relaxed and open I ever remember Carey Price being with the media. It was refreshing. It was nice to see. I mean, he was laughing at times. He was smiling. He was joking around a little bit. I honestly believe he really wants to come back and play. He'd love to come back and play. I think it was different with Shea Weber. I don't think Shea Weber really had any interest in coming back. I think he was done and ready to pack it in. Having said that, I think Carey also realizes he's not coming back. I mean, as he said, he can't even go up and down stairs now without having pain in his knee. It would require another surgery. He thinks if he wants to come back, and he's not ready to do that because it's only a 50% chance of success and it might lead to even more pain. He wants to be able to spend time with his kids and live a pain-free life moving forward. So I think he's done. There's a lot of things involved here too. There's insurance on the contract, right? He's got 4 more years left and he's got over $30 million earn. So he's not going to retire, and he's not going to say he's not trying to come back because insurance involved. There's a lot of different factors going on here. He came out and he told Arpen Basu of The Athletic that the issues he dealt with that put him in the NHLPA player assistance program last year were with alcohol. He seems to be over that. He seems to be fine now. I wish him all the best of luck moving forward. As anybody who's ever known anyone dealing with substance abuse, it's difficult. It's a hard thing to get over. And there's also a big change in his life right now, right? His hockey career is over, which is a big thing for anyone to adjust to, as I'm sure Rick obviously knows. So I just wish him the best of luck. It was nice to see him at the Alouettes game with his family and his young kids, seeming to enjoy family time. He joked that his oldest daughter was sort of like his personal assistant, handing little footballs to him from the fans so that he could autograph them. He looked like he was having a good time when he was at that NBA exhibition game, but it's a whole new world right now for Carey Price. I think it's good that he's going to still be around the team a bit, just because he'll still have that bond with the players and being with the guys. As he said, he doesn't want to be in the way. He said, when you're not part of the team, you're injured, you sort of feel like you're part of the team, but you don't feel like you're part of the team. It's a gray area. So there's a lot going on with Carey Price in his life right now, but he seems happy right now. I'm happy for him, and I hope that moving forward he can enjoy his time with his family, but I'd be shocked if we see him back playing goalie for the Canadiens.
Well, and you're right, Stu, that it was the most relaxed that I've ever seen him. Like, I'm not a guy who's in the room every day, but when Eric Engels talked about what he was dealing with during the playoff run and how he got through the pain, and he talked about how he'd just basically bite down on a stick and get through it. And the laugh that he let out, I have never seen Carey Price laugh that hard. No. It just seemed like he was a totally different person. And maybe that's, getting through not having to put up that shield anymore, right? Where, you're hiding your own stress and your own emotions, trying to be the rock behind that team, right? You don't have to do that anymore. So it's great to see him have that attitude. But what did you guys think about him saying that he would like to win a cup, whether it's on the ice or off the ice, that he would maybe be interested in some position with the Montreal Canadiens at some point off the ice? Yeah,
that was one of the most interesting things. He said he's already talked with Geneviève Paquette of the Canadiens Children's Foundation about doing work with her, charity work, I guess, with her. And then, when he said that, leads you open that he wants to stay in hockey in some kind of position, and he hasn't given up his hope of winning the Stanley Cup. So that was one of the most interesting things that came out of it. I know a lot of people speculating before the press conference, is he going to announce he's retiring? I mean, the reason he held the press conference is because us in the media had asked to speak to him because we hadn't spoken to him for so long. We did the same request with Shea Weber last year, and he turned it down. He didn't want to talk. But that was a really interesting point when he said that he hasn't given up on his dream of winning a Stanley Cup in whatever position that might be.
Yeah, and it's true. Every professional athlete wants to get the ultimate, and the Stanley Cup as the ultimate prize that you could ever ask for. And it was funny how he handled that he would be interested in partaking in anything that has to do with an opportunity to get close to that cup winning thing. But I think we have to really feel for him in the way as an ex-athlete. When your time is getting close to the end and you feel it, you sense it, and then you throw injury in there's a lot of things that go through your mind that are really difficult. And, here's a classic example, a guy that's been at the top for so many years, and now all of a sudden that's gone from him. Really tough to accept. So he has that challenge. The good news is, and he speaks about it often, that his family has been behind him. His kids and his wife have been, a huge part of keeping him, the best he can be. And, with that, as anybody knows, that's a huge part in, moving your life forward and figuring things out in a much positive way.
I mean, the only thing missing from his resume is the Stanley Cup. And, if he had played behind the big three on defense with Robinson, Savard, and Lapointe, he would have won Stanley Cups. If he had played behind you, Rick, and the other guys that were there in the 86 Cup, he probably wouldn't have won a cup. He was the best player on a lot of bad teams and had to stand on his head many, many nights. So it'll be, moving forward, Brendan Gallagher spoke about how Price should have his number retired. That's probably a debate maybe for another show or discussion for another show. When you look at some of the players who aren't retired yet, Steve Shutt, Jacques Lemaire, Toe Blake, he might need to get in line. But Carey Price was a dominant figure in Montreal for a long time.
I'll say this, guys, right now for Carey Price, we brought the games played, right? As Andrew made the point before, From 07-08 to 14-15, he played about 55 games per season. After that, 38 games per season. So you saw the dramatic drop-off after that injury, as Andrew made the point. Now, you guys brought up the point of the future of Carey Price. We saw Roberto Luongo go into management with the Florida Panthers. If the Habs were to bring him back in that capacity, guys, Andrew, do you think he should be a coach or someone in management moving forward?
I think it's probably easier to it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but I feel like it's easier to step into management with no experience, where you have a little bit more of a support structure than coaching. I feel like coaching, you need some experience being the boss of the guys in the room, working up from lower levels. It seems like throwing a rookie coach in there is a little bit tougher. I think it'd be better for him to run into where Luongo is, where you're like the management of the goaltending or something like that, and try to work with guys where you have mentors you can work with all day and you're not necessarily hands-on for the first year or so. That seems like the best fit to me, but Price seems like a pretty smart guy overall. So I think he would be more fit for management anyway. Like coaching, you want more like dynamic personalities, if that makes sense. You want guys who are like exciting, and Price is very stoic. So that to me says management.
I would agree with you on that, Andrew, because let's face it, if he stepped into the role of the coaching, expectations are that he's supposed to, make incredible things happen for each and every one of those guys, in the net. So there's quite a bit of pressure that would come with that, and it's not the reality of that type of position. So management, if he's obviously interested. He knows what he needs to do, and the information needs to pass along for success. So I think if he really wants to, open up a door for him and let him, help out with his experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's no salary cap in management. I could see him. I don't see Carey as a coach, but I could see him being like some kind of a special assistant to the GM. One of the biggest questions for the Canadiens now moving forward: who is their goalie of the future? Caden Primo hasn't done anything to convince me that he's that guy. That's the reason why they signed Jake Allen to that 2-year contract extension. So maybe have Carey Price start looking at some goalies in junior and whatnot, and maybe he can pick out a guy who might be the next Carey Price for this team.
Well, it's a what if at that point, and we'll find out the future of Carey Price, hopefully sooner than later, what he will do, whether it's be with the Canadiens or somewhere else. On to question number 2. Arber Xhekaj has become a rock star in this city. The Wi-Fi is definitely at a high speed for what he did against Zach Kassian. Your thoughts here, gentlemen, on that fight that he had with Kassian that kind of laid the gauntlet that, hey, he wants to stay with the big club moving forward.
He's one tough kid. I mean, when I saw him basically attack Kassian, saying, you know what, let's get this on and get it over with. And when he fights, he's fighting to hurt, and he punches. And I saw him the other night. His hands are huge. He's a big guy, and he keeps the opposition quite honest. But let's not forget also that this kid can play. He's a young defenseman that's still learning to play at the NHL level. He can skate. He doesn't do a lot of dumb things out there for a young kid. So there's tremendous upside with him moving forward, developing to be a bona fide good defenseman in the league. And I'm really happy that he's on the Canadian side, because he's going to make things tough for the opposition when it comes down to, don't mess with any of my guys. I'll take care of it. And he's already shown that he can.
Yeah, I asked Xhekaj during training camp how he learned how to fight, and he said, you can't really teach someone how to fight. You get in one, you get punched in the face, and either you like it or you don't like it. So I guess he liked it the first time he got into it. Fighting's not as big a part of the game now, which is a good thing. But intimidation is still a part of hockey. You go back to last season, I remember a game in New Jersey where the Devils were targeting Suzuki and Caulfield, and it was Chris Weidman who had to come to the rescue, all 5'10" and 175 or 80 pounds of him. So what Xhekaj did, he set the message around the league. I mean, I'm sure Zach Kassian has never been ragdolled in a fight in his life, going back to his junior days. He's one of the toughest guys in the NHL. He's been doing it for a long time. And Xhekaj ragdolled him. I mean, he had the sweater up over his head. Kassian was hanging on for dear life at the end. That sends a pretty strong message around the league. And I think Xhekaj won't have to fight as much because of that. There was some talk on Twitter after Kassian had fought him that he's going to fight him again before the game's over. I didn't think he would, because if you're an old fighter in the NHL, you lose once to a kid, you can say it was sort of fluky. You lose twice, a guy like Kassian at the end of his career, that could be the end of his career. He's one of the last guys in the NHL who's still there mainly for his fighting abilities. As Rick said, Xhekaj can play. He's got good hands. He's got, he can move the puck. He covers a lot of zone in the defensive territory. He hits guys. But it just sends a message. I talked with David Savard about it after the game the other night, and he said just with a young team and a bunch of kids and young stars like Cole Caulfield, having a guy like that around is a good thing to have, because guys aren't going to take advantage of the young guys on the team. So he's a valuable player on the team. But the days of being able to address the George Paroses of the world and have him sit on the end of the bench and play 3 minutes and only be there to fight are gone. You have to be able to play in the NHL today, too. You have to roll 4 lines and 6 defense. And Xhekaj, as Marty St. Louis keeps saying, he's a hockey player. He's not just a fighter. He's a hockey player. But if somebody wants to go with him, boy, look out.
Yeah, that's the thing that's so special about Arber Xhekaj is it's very rare to have somebody who's as intimidating as him who's also a good player. And there are holes in his game, absolutely, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but I find the issues that he has are very correctable with time and experience. It's things like attention to detail in the defensive zone, right? Stick positioning. And those kinds of mistakes, I think with good coaching, you can fix and he can become complete. Like there was a break that he took a bad pass from Suzuki and it went past him in the game against Minnesota. And he chased down essentially what was a 3-on-1 and turned it into a 2-on-1. And they still scored. So he didn't necessarily make that much of an impact, but the effort was there to get back in. He took the right lane to take another guy out of the play. He made the right moves, but his stick was not in the right position. Right. So it's a small thing that can get better with time. What I liked about the fight between him and Kassian, because I don't think Kassian is necessarily a great heavyweight fighter, but he's a big dude. It's not even the fact that Xhekaj, beat the tar out of him. It's that at the end of the fight, he basically just picked him up and shook him around like he was a little kid. It was insane how strong this kid is. And you can tell how strong he is by how often he breaks his sticks just taking a shot. I mean, 2 every game, it seems like he takes a slap shot and the stick just ends up in the stands. Like they got to get him some stronger sticks or something. That's my big takeaway from Arber Xhekaj. He needs to be using some old wood sticks or something.
Yeah, I get one of those old 4-pound Canadiens that you use the whole year, you never break it. But and that's with hacking allowed.
Yeah, well, he's going to learn. I mean, the game against Dallas, he got caught trying to mix it up with Jamie Benn behind the net. Him and Weidman both ended up behind the net, and Dallas scored. The game against Minnesota, he took a dumb penalty. There was already a delayed penalty against Minnesota, and it was a questionable call by the referee on Xhekaj, but the referee was standing right beside him. He has a reputation. He was waiting for him to do anything to call a penalty on him, and he did. And Marty St. Louis said, after the game, he's going to learn from that, but it's going to be a learning process for a lot of these young defensemen. But boy, really is a lot to like about this kid. He's really popular in the locker room. He's willing to learn. He's going to be all ears. He said when he started playing junior, he didn't know how to play defense. They played him at forward sometimes at junior just to get him on the ice. Boy, he's a quick learner. So I think that's going to continue. I think Stefan Robida, all the young defensemen have talked about how good he's been with them, how positive, pointing things out, not getting angry with guys. It's all positive. It's a learning. It's a teaching thing. This whole season was about development. And that's one of the things I'm really going to be looking forward to is just watching Arber Xhekaj develop as the season goes on.
And
guys, with his future, with this Canadiens organization, his potential, what's his ceiling? Is he maybe not number 1, number 2 defenseman, but is he a 3-4 as his max potential, Rick?
Well, let's face it. He's been given an opportunity through injury. You're getting into the numbers crunch here as far as who's going to step in there, but he's deserving of playing in the 5th, 6th position, if you will, with tremendous upside as far as what he's going to learn with more exposure to the NHL game. And I always judge these young defensemen to see how they handle when they're under pressure and what their decisions are with the puck. And overall, he's one of the guys, along with a number of them back there, that don't seem to panic necessarily with the puck and throw it away. And they've been given the green light to jump into the play offensively, which is great. That's the new game. And again, it's cost him on occasion a few times, but this again is part of the learning process to be selective in, you know, a lot of the details of the game that he's going to figure it out. So his skill level is there. Now you just tune it up to the point where he can consistently play at the NHL level, and I believe he will.
One of the things Go ahead,
Stu.
One of the things I've really enjoyed watching the Canes is how much the defense pinch, and they do get caught once in a while. But it's all about learning right now, right? It's all about learning, and Marty St. Louis is going to live with the mistakes. There was one shift against Minnesota where Xhekaj and Jordan Harris both pinched at this. They were both in the offensive zone in front of the net, but the forwards came back and covered up. So Marty St. Louis is encouraging them to do that, and he's telling the forwards to keep an eye on that to make sure if they do pinch that you're back covering. So you had both defensemen in front of the net, both pinching in. The two wingers dropped back, and I was thinking, man, when was the last time we saw a Canadiens team do that?
Yeah, I love the creativity. I mean, look at back. The Canadiens used to be the most creative team in the league back in the 70s. Scotty Bowman used to have Guy Lapointe and Larry Robinson start at forward on the power play. Like weird stuff like that. I love it. But one of the things that I'm interested in Xhekaj, I think he's at best going to be a 4-5, and this might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but even in that position, he might be more important to the team than the third defenseman just because of the way that his physicality impacts the game. You look at guys who have been foundational, changing players for an organization like Milan Lucic in his prime in Boston, right? Milan Lucic was never the best winger on the Boston Bruins. Might have been the most important winger, though.
Yeah, to me, he's a 5-6, partly because of all the other talented young defensemen the Canadiens have now and coming up. But to me, if he's in your third pairing, that's a pretty solid guy to have there.
And they can all skate. So you talk about being effective in the rush or getting caught down deep. Well, that's okay because they can get back. They can motor back as quick as they go up the ice. So a real advantage to having that type of mobility from those guys back on the blue line. Now they just have to fine tune when to go and when not to go.
Well, it's all a learning experience for these young defensemen, and Zach Kassian learned a strong lesson. Don't mess with the Wi-Fi when it comes to fighting him on the rink. On to question number 3 on Hockey Inside Out, and Juraj Slafkovsky. His strengths and weaknesses so far. Yes, he's been glitched by an injury and has been on the ice for the last few games here. Stu, what's your thoughts on Juraj and what he's done so far from his strengths and weaknesses perspective?
To me, his strength is that he's just continued to get better. I mean, the first few games, he looked like he didn't really belong in the NHL. He was, especially in the defensive zone with the puck coming to him along the boards. He wasn't reacting quick enough, going from the small rink to the big rink, not realizing when NHL defensemen pinch on you, you got to know what you're doing with the puck before it even gets to you. And he had that sort of delay. He was falling down a lot. He wasn't using his body enough. He wasn't going to the net enough. Marty St. Louis spoke about all those things. Skating around a lot of the times with one hand on his stick. I remember there was one game, I can't remember who against, a guy hacked the stick out of his hand. It went about 35 feet up in the air. But every game he just gets a little bit better. You see little things a little bit better, getting a little bit better with the puck along the boards in his own zone, being a little bit more physical. I think scoring that first goal was huge. Unfortunately, he hasn't played since then. He got hurt after that. Apparently it's a wrist injury. But he's just getting a little bit better all the time. And I think as long as he does that, he's going to stay with the Canadiens. I don't think the Canadiens expect him to be a star player right away. In fact, I know they don't. But as long as he keeps showing a little bit of improvements, they're showing him little things on video. The skills coach Adam Nicholas is working with him. He's well surrounded here with the Canadiens, with the coaching staff. I think that's one of the reasons they want to keep him here. So as long as he just shows, even if it's just minimal improvement each game, doing some of the things that I mentioned before, like going to the net, etc., I think he's going to stay here.
Yeah, the impression I get from Slafkovsky is he's highly coachable, right? Which is something that every organization loves. It's why every coach who's ever had Nick Suzuki loves Nick Suzuki. You want Nick Suzuki to be a shutdown defenseman or shutdown center, sorry. He's going to be one of the best shutdown centers in the league. You want him to provide some offense? Well, he's going to do that too. You want him to run a power play? Well, maybe not in the NHL quite yet, but we can get to that in another episode. But I think Slafkovsky has really improved game to game, just like Stu said. In terms of his strengths, I feel like skating continues to be a strength. His shot looks good. You can tell that his passing, his skill is extremely high, but he's limited right now by his biggest weakness, which is his scanning. You can tell that he's not quite adjusted to the speed of the NHL game so far, and he kind of just does what he thinks he wants to do and doesn't really find the best play, which is something that Martin St. Louis is always focused on, making the best play. And right now he's not scanning. He needs to watch what Nick Suzuki does and always looking for the best play. Suzuki's one of the best in the league at scanning, but not over scanning, right? He's not whipping his head around all the time and not paying attention to what's in front of him, but he knows where everybody is at all times. That's why he can find Caulfield on those cross-seam passes all the time. But Slafkovsky's not finding his teammates very well so far, and if he improves on that, he's an NHL player right away.
Well, and let's face it, the reason why they drafted him is he's a character kid, with good size and skating, and these type of ingredients are huge bonus, and not to mention his size at 18 years old. I mean, he's got tremendous upside moving forward with how this is all going to come together. And I won't call it a weakness, but I will say that for him coming in to play the North American game with the NHL players, the smaller rinks, 18 years old, a lot of variables that come into the picture here on a young kid trying to figure out, how to be an NHL player and, learn what he needs to do each and every day on a long grinding schedule. And this kid, with time, as everybody's touched on, is progressing in the right way. And he's got a great upside. And as long as everybody is patient and, not panicking that he's supposed to be doing this and supposed to be doing that yesterday, let's let him do the process, and we'll add things up with time, and we'll probably see more positive than negative with this good quality kid that they have on their squad.
Well, there's been so many changes to this Canadiens management team, and one of the key ones, especially when it impacts Slafkovsky, is bringing in Adam Nicholas, the skills coach or head of hockey development. You see him on the ice before practices, working with either forwards or defensemen during practices. He's talking with guys. Slafkovsky's talked about doing video work with him. And Nicholas showing him not only video of himself, but video of other players in the NHL with a similar package of skills that Slafkovsky has, and showing how they use their body and how they do certain things. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I think that's one of the reasons why they want to keep him in Montreal, to be around Nicholas and be around all the coaching staff they have here. But the biggest change he's made was the tape job on his stick, right? That's what Brendan Gallagher is convinced. That's why he scored the goal. I mean, first thing I noticed at the development camp, he had like 3 little strands of tape on the toe of his stick. I asked him about it afterwards. He says, "Oh, that's me. I want to be different." And Gallagher's been giving him a hard time about it right since the beginning of training camp, telling him to tape his stick like a real NHLer. First game, he goes full blade with white tape. He scores a goal. Gallagher's convinced that's why he scored.
Well, at least he hasn't gotten to the point where, like Peter Klima, I don't know if you remember him.
I do.
He used to tape his stick, the shaft of his stick, just tape it like I don't know, what do you call it? Just like a strand all the way around. And then he would put a piece of tape in the middle of his helmet. And everybody say, "Well, why do you put the tape in the middle of your helmet?" He goes, "Well, because when guys look at me, it distracts them when they see the tape in the middle of my helmet." Okay, just hopefully we don't have a situation where we've got a guy like that doing that kind of stuff. So
just overthinking it a little bit.
When I was a kid, Rick, my favorite player was Guy Lapointe. So I remember going out and buying a white Canadian hockey stick just like Guy Lapointe's. No tape on the blade, just like Guy Lapointe. Stick didn't last long, but
Rick playing street hockey with no tape isn't very good for that stick.
Rick, from your perspective, right? For him, Juraj Slafkovsky, how long do you think it'll take him to adapt and get comfortable at the NHL level, as it was for you being the first overall pick back in the day?
Well, I don't think there's any special recipe involved here. You see a young kid; he's averaging 11 minutes a game. Time, allows them to make adjustments over the long run, and putting him in different situations. The advantage they do have with a kid like this, he has a skill set. So the skill set is going to be tuned to the point where he's going to be contributing very, very well, in the long run. That's my feeling on it. But, it's not something that you can just turn a switch and say, okay, he's got it all figured out. Let him go and let him feel, let him experience, let him see everything that goes with playing in the NHL, watching, learning from guys. And then when he gets the opportunity, as his 11 minutes on average maybe will increase as he's deserving of it. And then we'll see that progression in a lot of his game. And everybody, they touched on his physical play. This is a guy that's a big kid. And a lot of times the guys with big size don't realize how much they can use it to their advantage. And again, that's an ingredient that I think that over the course of the season, you'll understand that it's a bonus to be that big a guy and use it to his advantage to the point where it's going to improve his overall game.
As you said, Rick, watching and learning are the key things, and that's what Marty St. Louis is doing. Some fans are freaking out that Slafkovsky's not getting enough ice time, but Marty St. Louis started off as a fourth liner in the NHL and became a Hall of Famer. He said that Slafkovsky will be on the power play eventually, but he wants him to watch it from the bench now. He wants him to, obviously there's certain things that they're telling him to watch. I imagine he knows what position they're going to put him in when they eventually put him on the power play, and it's a case of watching it work. It's not working very well, so we might see him on the power play sooner rather than later. But watching and learning is a huge part for any young player coming into the NHL, and Slafkovsky is so well surrounded right now, unlike Kotkaniemi and other top prospects were in the past in this organization.
Maybe that explains the power play, Stu. Maybe it's this is what we're showing Slav not to do.
Well, you mentioned Suzuki on the power play. Maybe if they didn't drop the puck to Suzuki in his own zone every single time they're coming up the ice, they might be a little bit less predictable.
Well, if there's one thing for Juraj Slafkovsky, he's got time to develop and perhaps become a foundational piece for the Montreal Canadiens for the next 10, 12, 15 years, maybe 20 years. You never know. He could be like Tom Brady for the Montreal Canadiens moving forward. Well, that'll do it for us here on this week's episode of Hockey Inside Out. Like and subscribe on our YouTube page for Hockey Inside Out. And also subscribe to the MontrealGazette.com/newsletter that we'll have every day as well. And also for bonus content and more episodes, check out Hockey Inside Out. And finally, if you have questions or comments, please leave us that, and we will definitely converse about that for future episodes coming up in the time being. With that, we wish you a great week. Hope you enjoyed the hockey action. We'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.